Hey there. Before I share this story with you, I just want to say thank you for being here. Whether you're watching this at 3 a.m. because you can't sleep, during your lunch break trying to escape reality for a bit, or on a long commute home, I appreciate you taking the time to listen. If this story resonates with you, if it makes you think twice about those dark stretches of highway you drive past every day, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you want to hear more stories like this, true accounts from the people who patrol the forgotten corners of America, consider subscribing. It really does help these stories reach the people who need to hear them. I'm curious, where are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments below. Are you somewhere familiar and safe, or are you maybe traveling through unfamiliar territory? And what time is it where you are? There's something about these stories that hits different, depending on when you hear them. Late-night viewers know what I'm talking about. All right, let me take a breath here. This isn't easy to talk about, even now, years later. But someone needs to tell this story before it gets buried completely. Let's begin. Every radio frequency in New Jersey is registered, monitored, and accounted for. The FCC keeps meticulous records. So, when dispatch reported that multiple drivers were calling in about a broadcast on 104.7 FM, I ran it through the system. Nothing. The frequency didn't exist. Wasn't licensed, wasn't used, wasn't possible. But I could hear it too, coming through my patrol radio, cutting through the static. A voice, calm and patient, speaking in a language I'd never heard before, giving coordinates, directions, calling people into the Pine Barrens like a siren song. And the worst part? I understood it. Even though I'd never heard those words before, I knew exactly what it was saying. Come home. Come back to the congregation. Come feed the forest. My name is Michael Castellano, and I need to tell you about the thing that lives in the Pine Barrens before it calls again. It was October 13th, 2003. A Monday night, unseasonably warm for mid-October. I'd been with the New Jersey State Police for 15 years by then, but I'd just been transferred to the Pine Barrens patrol sector 3 weeks earlier. It wasn't a promotion. Let's be clear about that. Pine Barrens Patrol is where they send you when you've pissed someone off or when you're being quietly pushed toward retirement. In my case, it was the former. I'd filed a complaint about a superior officer falsifying overtime records, and 2 weeks later, I got my new assignment. Mile marker 52, Garden State Parkway, covering a 60-mile stretch that cuts through the heart of the Pine Barrens. Population density, basically zero. Notable landmarks, even fewer. Just endless trees, sandy soil, and darkness that seemed to press in from all sides once the sun went down. My father had worked this same patrol from 1971 to 1989. He died in 2002, and in all those years he never once talked about what he saw out here. Not to my mother, not to me, not to anyone. I thought I understood why. It was boring, monotonous work. Nothing but empty highway and trees for hours at a stretch. I was wrong about so many things. That Monday night started like any other shift. I clocked in at the Tuckerton Barracks at 10 p.m., grabbed my third coffee of the day, and headed out to my assigned sector. The Garden State Parkway this far south is a different animal than the sections near New York or even Atlantic City. No rest stops, no gas stations, barely any traffic after 9 p.m., just asphalt cutting through wilderness, streetlights spaced so far apart that you spend more time in darkness than light. At 11:47 p.m., my radio crackled to life. Trooper Castellano, this is dispatch. We're getting reports of a vehicle stopped on the shoulder near mile marker 52. Driver called in saying they heard something on their radio that made them pull over. They sound disoriented. Can you respond? Copy that, dispatch. En route. Mile marker 52 was about 10 minutes from my position. I flipped on my lights and accelerated, watching the trees blur past in the darkness. The radio was quiet except for the usual static and occasional chatter from other sectors. Nothing unusual. Then, at exactly 11:53 p.m., I heard it. It started as interference, a low hum that cut through the normal radio frequencies. Then it resolved into something else. A voice, speaking in a language I didn't recognize, but the cadence was hypnotic, rhythmic, almost musical. And underneath the voice I could hear something else, a sound like wind through trees, or water flowing over rocks, or maybe thousands of whispers all speaking at once. I reached for my radio to report the interference, and that's when I realized. I understood what the voice was saying. Not the words themselves. I couldn't have translated them if you'd asked me to. But the meaning was crystal clear in my mind, like someone had placed the thoughts there directly. Come home. The congregation awaits. The forest needs you. Come back to where you belong. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What the hell was this? The voice continued, now giving specific directions. Exit at mile marker 52. Follow the old fire road. Come to the clearing. Come home. I tried to change the station, but the voice was on every frequency. AM, FM, even the emergency bands, everywhere. And the longer I listened, the more sense it made. The forest did need me. I did need to go home. Why was I even questioning this? It was the most natural thing in the world to... I slammed on the brakes. My cruiser skidded to a stop on the shoulder, tires screaming against asphalt. I was breathing hard, my heart pounding in my chest. What the hell had I just been thinking? Go home? To the forest? That wasn't my thought. That was something else, something being pushed into my mind through that broadcast. I looked down at my odometer. Mile marker 51. I'd been seconds away from the exit. The radio went silent. Just static again, normal and mundane. I sat there for a full minute, trying to steady my breathing, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. Stress, exhaustion. Maybe carbon monoxide from an exhaust leak. There had to be a rational explanation. Then I saw the car. It was pulled over on the shoulder about 50 yards ahead, exactly where dispatch had said it would be. A silver Toyota Camry, late 90s model, driver's door hanging open. The interior light was on, and I could see the keys still in the ignition. The engine was running, but no driver. I pulled up behind it, hit my spotlight, and stepped out of my cruiser. The night was quiet except for the distant hum of the Camry's engine. No wind, no crickets, no sound of traffic, just that oppressive silence that makes you hyper-aware of your own breathing. "State Police," I called out, my hand resting on my weapon. "If anyone's out here, identify yourself." Nothing. I approached the Camry carefully, scanning the tree line. The driver's door was wide open, the seat pushed back like someone had gotten out in a hurry. The radio was on, tuned to 104.7 FM. Static played from the speakers, just static now, no voice. I checked the registration in the glove box. Vehicle belonged to a David Chen, address in Princeton. I radioed it in to dispatch. "Dispatch, I've got an abandoned vehicle at mile marker 52. No sign of the driver. Registration shows." The radio cut out. That interference again, that low humming sound. And then the voice came back, clearer now, more insistent. He's already home. He heard the call. He understood. "Why are you still resisting?" I fumbled with the radio, trying to switch frequencies, but my hands were shaking. The voice wasn't just coming through the radio anymore. I could hear it in my head, bypassing my ears entirely. "Michael, your father hurt us too. He understood. He kept others away for so many years. But you're curious. You want to know. Come see. Come home. How did it know my name? I backed away from the Camry, my hand now firmly on my weapon even though I had no idea what I could possibly shoot at. The trees around me seemed darker suddenly, the shadows between them deeper. And in those shadows, I thought I saw movement. Shapes. Not quite human, but not quite anything else either. My radio crackled with normal dispatch traffic, the interference suddenly gone. Trooper Castellano, repeat your last transmission. We lost you for a moment. Dispatch, I struggled to find words that wouldn't make me sound insane. I've got an abandoned vehicle. Driver is missing. I'm going to search the immediate area. Copy that. Do you need backup? I should have said yes. God, I should have said yes. Negative, dispatch. I'll update you in 15 minutes. I grabbed my flashlight and started walking toward the tree line. The Camry's headlights illuminated the first few feet of the forest, but beyond that, it was pitch black. My flashlight beam seemed weak, almost swallowed by the darkness. There was a path, not a real path, no Park Service signs, no maintained trail, but the underbrush was trampled, like someone had walked this way recently. I could see footprints in the sandy soil, men's shoes, size 10 or 11, leading straight into the Pine Barrens. I followed them for maybe 50 yards before I found the first piece of evidence. A wallet dropped in the middle of the path. I picked it up and shined my light on the driver's license inside. David Chen, 34 years old. The man from Princeton whose car I'd just found abandoned. But the weird thing was, the wallet was open, like he'd dropped it deliberately. And inside, folded behind his credit cards, was a piece of paper. I pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a map, hand-drawn, crude but detailed. It showed the Garden State Parkway, mile marker 52, and a route leading deep into the Pine Barrens. At the end of the route was a circle, and inside that circle someone had written, "The Congregation." My blood ran cold. This man had known where he was going. This wasn't a random breakdown or a confused driver. He'd planned this. He'd drawn a map to what? The radio static returned, and this time I could hear more than one voice. Multiple broadcasts, all overlapping, all saying the same thing in that strange language I somehow understood. 47 tonight. The forest is hungry, the congregation grows. Come home, Michael. Come see what your father protected them from. Come see what he sacrificed for. 47 what? I turned to head back to my cruiser, and that's when I saw them. Cars. Lots of cars. They weren't visible from the road. They were parked in the trees, hidden from view, all with their engines running and doors open. I counted 6 within my immediate sight line, and I could see more headlights flickering deeper in the woods. Each one abandoned. Each one with its radio tuned to 104.7 FM. Each one with a hand-drawn map inside, showing the way to the congregation. This wasn't one missing person. This was dozens, maybe more. I ran back to my cruiser, my heart hammering. I needed backup. I needed the state police, the FBI, the National Guard. Whatever was happening here, it was way beyond a single trooper's capability to handle. But when I reached my vehicle, I found something that made me stop cold. There was a note on my windshield. A piece of paper, yellowed with age, held down by my windshield wiper. I picked it up with shaking hands and read the handwritten message. Michael, if you're reading this, you heard the broadcast. I'm sorry, I tried to keep you away from this sector. The transfer wasn't random. Someone in the state police wanted you here. They want to see if you'll break the way I almost did. Rule number 1, never follow the path. Rule number 2, never go in after dark. Rule number 3, don't try to find them. They're already gone. I love you, son. Dad. It was my father's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere, but this was impossible. He'd died a year ago. How could he have written a note that was sitting on my windshield right now? Unless he'd written it years ago, unless he'd known this moment would come, unless he'd been preparing for it. A sound made me turn. From deep in the woods, I heard singing. Not the radio broadcast. This was human voices, dozens of them, all singing in harmony. That same strange language, that same hypnotic rhythm. And underneath the singing, I heard movement. Footsteps, lots of them, coming toward the road. I dove into my cruiser and slammed the door, locking it. Through the trees, I could see them now. Figures walking in a line, moving with purpose toward the clearing. They were dressed in normal clothes, jeans, t-shirts, business casual. Regular people. But they moved wrong, their gait synchronized, their heads all tilted at the same angle. As they passed through my headlight beams, I got a better look at their faces. They were smiling, all of them, the same serene, peaceful smile, and their eyes were wrong. The pupils were too large, consuming almost the entire iris, and in that darkness I thought I saw something moving, something growing. I grabbed my radio. "Dispatch, this is Castellano. I need immediate backup at mile marker 52. Multiple persons walking into the Pine Barrens. Possible mass casualty event. Send everyone." Static. "Dispatch, do you copy?" More static. Then a voice, but not dispatch. It was calm, professional, and distinctly human, not the broadcast voice. Something else. "Trooper Castellano, this is Director Hawkins, Department of Environmental Protection. Stand down, do not pursue the individuals. Do not enter the forest. Return to barracks immediately. The situation is under federal jurisdiction." "Acknowledge. Who the hell is this?" I demanded. "This is a state police matter. This is a protocol situation, Trooper. You have no jurisdiction here. Return to barracks. That's an order." The line went dead. I sat there watching as more people emerged from the woods. 20, 30, 40. I stopped counting. They walked past my cruiser like I wasn't even there, heading deeper into the forest, following that invisible path toward something I couldn't see. One of them stopped. A woman, maybe 40 years old, wearing a business suit. She turned to look directly at me, her two large pupils reflecting my headlights. And she smiled. Then she spoke, and her voice was perfect English. "He's watching, Michael. Your father, he's part of the congregation now. He wants you to join us. He says it's beautiful here. He says you'll understand once you come home." She turned and walked into the darkness, leaving me sitting in my locked cruiser, shaking, trying to process what I'd just heard. My father had been dead for a year, buried in Holy Cross Cemetery in Newark. I'd been to his funeral. I'd watched them lower the casket, but some part of me, some deep, primal part, believed her. I started my engine and drove away from mile marker 52, my father's note clutched in my hand, the singing fading behind me but never quite disappearing completely. That was the first night. The night I learned about the protocol. The night I learned that the Pine Barrens aren't just a forest. There's something else. Something alive. Something hungry. And they were calling us home. I drove straight back to the Tuckerton Barracks, doing 70 in a 55 zone, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. My father's note sat on the passenger seat, and every time I glanced at it, I felt like I was going insane. Dead men don't leave notes. Dead men don't warn their sons about broadcasts that shouldn't exist. But the note was real. The paper was yellowed, the ink faded. This wasn't something written yesterday. My father had known. Years ago, maybe decades ago, he'd known I'd end up at mile marker 52. He'd known I'd hear that voice. The barracks parking lot was empty except for 3 vehicles: my cruiser, the shift supervisor's car, and a black sedan with government plates. Not state police. Federal. I found them waiting in the briefing room. Captain Morris, my shift supervisor, sat at the head of the table looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. Next to him was a man in his 50s wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. He had the kind of face you forgot the moment you looked away: generic features, neutral expression, the human equivalent of beige. "Trooper Castellano," the man said, standing to shake my hand. "I'm Director James Hawkins, Department of Environmental Protection." We spoke on the radio. "DEP?" I said, ignoring his offered hand. "Since when does Environmental Protection have jurisdiction over missing persons?" "Sit down, Michael," Captain Morris said quietly. It wasn't a request. I sat. Hawkins pulled out a folder and placed it on the table between us. It was thick, maybe 3 inches of documents, and stamped across the front in faded red ink was a single word: protocol. "What you witnessed tonight," Hawkins began, "is part of a phenomenon we've been monitoring since 1778. Every October 13th, without fail, between the hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., a broadcast begins on an unregistered frequency. The broadcast calls to certain individuals. We still don't fully understand the selection criteria, and compels them to enter the Pine Barrens. They walk to a specific location deep in the forest, and they don't come back." 47 people, I said. "That woman said 47 tonight." Hawkins nodded. "The number varies year to year. Sometimes it's a dozen, sometimes it's over 100, but it's always October 13th, and it's always the same frequency, 104.7 FM. "That frequency doesn't exist," I said. "I checked the FCC database. The frequency doesn't exist in our reality," Hawkins interrupted. "But it exists somewhere. The broadcast is coming from inside the Pine Barrens themselves, from something that's been there far longer than humans have been in New Jersey." I stared at him. "You're telling me there's something supernatural in the Pine Barrens, and the federal government just lets it happen? Every year, dozens of people disappear, and you do nothing." "We do what we can," Captain Morris said quietly. "The protocol exists to minimize casualties. We evacuate the area, we try to jam the frequency, we intercept people before they reach mile marker 52. But Michael, we can't stop the broadcast. We've tried everything: military jamming equipment, EMP devices, cutting power to every radio tower in South Jersey. Nothing works. The signal comes through anyway." Hawkins opened the folder and pulled out a document. It was old, the paper brittle and brown with age. At the top, I could see a date: October 13th, 1778. "During the Revolutionary War," Hawkins said, "a Continental Army unit was stationed in the Pine Barrens. 40 soldiers. On October 13th, they all abandoned their post and walked into the forest. George Washington himself launched an investigation. They never found a single body, but they found something else. A clearing deep in the barrens where the trees grew in a perfect circle around a depression in the ground. And in that depression, they found artifacts, items that predated European colonization by thousands of years." He pulled out another document, this one more recent, a typed report from the 1950s. In 1952, the state of New Jersey conducted a geological survey of the Pine Barrens. They found something under the forest, a structure made of stone extending at least 300 feet underground. The survey team refused to continue after the first day. They claimed they could hear singing coming from below. 2 of the surveyors walked into the forest that night and never came back. The project was classified, and the area was designated as protected wilderness. No development, no logging, no excavation. The Pine Barrens Protocol was officially established. My father, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He knew about this. He worked this sector for 18 years. Your father was one of the best, Captain Morris said. He understood the protocol better than anyone. He kept people away from mile marker 52, rerouted traffic on October 13th, did everything he could to minimize exposure to the broadcast. But Michael, he hesitated. Your father heard the call too. Every year for 18 years he heard it, and every year it got harder for him to resist. The note on my windshield. I tried to keep you away from this sector. The transfer, I said. You said someone in the state police wanted me here. Who? Hawkins and Morris exchanged a look. We don't know, Hawkins finally admitted. Your transfer orders came from Trenton, but the authorization was buried in routine paperwork. Someone with access and knowledge of the protocol deliberately placed you in this sector 3 weeks before October 13th. We think they wanted to see if you'd have the same resistance your father had. Or if you'd be more susceptible. Susceptible to what? To the call, Hawkins said. Michael, the people who walk into the Pine Barrens on October 13th, they're not being kidnapped. They're being invited. The broadcast doesn't work on everyone. Most people hear static, maybe some faint music. But for some people, for whatever reason, the message comes through crystal clear. They understand it. They feel compelled to follow it. Your father could hear it, and based on your report tonight, so can you. I thought about the voice in my head. Come home. Come back to the congregation. The way it had felt right, natural, like the most logical thing in the world would be to park my cruiser and walk into those trees. What happens to them? I asked. The people who go in. Where do they go? We don't know, Hawkins said. In 1984, we sent in a team with full tactical gear, radio equipment, GPS tracking. They made it about 2 miles into the forest before their radios cut out. We found their equipment 3 days later, arranged in a circle around that same clearing the Continental Army found in 1778. But no bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle, just their gear, and a message written in the dirt. We're home now. Captain Morris pulled out another photo and slid it across the table. It showed an aerial view of the Pine Barrens, with a red circle marked around a specific area. This is the clearing. We call it Site Zero. Every person who answers the call walks there. Every broadcast seems to originate from there, and every attempt we've made to investigate it directly has failed. The forest won't let us in. The forest won't let us in, I repeated. Captain, I know how it sounds, Morris cut me off, but that's the reality we're dealing with. The Pine Barrens is alive, Michael. Not alive like a plant or an animal. Alive like something conscious, something intelligent. And it's hungry. On October 13th every year it calls people home, and those people go willingly. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. You're telling me the government knows there's some kind of entity living under New Jersey and they just accept it? Do nothing? What would you have us do? Hawkins asked calmly. Bomb the forest? We tried that in 1967. Used white phosphorus to burn a 100-acre section around Site Zero. The trees grew back in 3 weeks, thicker than before. And that year, the October 13th death toll was 327 people. The forest retaliated. So you just let it feed? I was shouting now. You let it take 47 people tonight, and you do nothing? We saved thousands, Captain Morris said firmly. The protocol exists to minimize exposure. We reroute traffic, we shut down campgrounds, We do everything we can to keep people away from mile marker 52 on October 13th. Without the protocol, the death toll would be exponentially higher. I wanted to argue, but the logic was horrifyingly sound. If the broadcast worked on random people, if it could call to anyone susceptible who happened to be in range, then keeping people away from the Pine Barrens on that specific night was the only defense. Your father understood this, Hawkins said quietly. He hated it, but he understood. He kept this sector safe for 18 years. And then... He trailed off. And then what? I demanded. Morris looked uncomfortable. Michael, your father's death. The official report said heart attack, and that's technically true. But the circumstances... He was found in his patrol car at mile marker 52. It was October 14th, 2002, the morning after. My blood ran cold. He went in. He heard the call, and he went in. We don't know, Morris said. His car was there. His body was in the driver's seat. The medical examiner ruled it cardiac arrest. But Michael, his radio was tuned to 104.7 FM, and we found something in his hand. He pulled out an evidence bag. Inside was a piece of paper, similar to the maps I'd found in the abandoned cars. But this one was different. It showed Site 0, and written next to it in my father's handwriting. I can hear them singing. They sound happy. Maybe it's time to go home. I sat back down, my legs suddenly unable to support me. My father, the man who'd raised me, who'd taught me to tie my shoes and throw a baseball and be a good cop. He'd been fighting this thing for 18 years, resisting that call every October 13th, and in the end, it had broken him. He fought it, Hawkins said, right up until the end. The heart attack happened before he could get out of his car. He died resisting Michael. He died protecting others from making the choice he almost made. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you need to understand what you're up against, Hawkins said. The call doesn't go away. Once you hear it, once you understand it, it stays with you. Every year, it'll get a little stronger. Every October 13th, it'll be harder to resist. Your father lasted 18 years. Some people last less than one. So, what am I supposed to do? Quit? Transfer out? You could, Morris said. We'd approve it immediately, no questions asked. But Michael, you're one of the few people who can hear the broadcast and still resist it. That makes you valuable. The protocol needs officers who understand the threat, who can recognize when someone's being called. Officers who can help us save the ones who can still be saved. My father's note, I said. He knew I'd end up here. How? Hawkins pulled out one more document. This one was a personnel file, my father's. Clipped to the front was a handwritten note. If my son follows me into the state police, keep him away from Sector 7. If he ends up there anyway, give him this. Attached was a sealed envelope with my name on it. Hawkins slid it across the table. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter, dated October 15th, 2001, a year before my father died. Michael, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've been assigned to my old sector. I'm sorry, I tried to protect you from this, but I knew deep down that the forest would call you eventually. It's in our blood, I think. We hear it clearer than others. You'll be tempted. God, you'll be so tempted. The voice makes it sound beautiful, peaceful, like coming home after a long journey. But son, it's a lie. I've seen what the forest does to people. I've watched them walk in with smiles on their faces, and I've searched for their bodies and found nothing but silence. The protocol will tell you that the people who go in are lost. They're wrong. Those people are being consumed, fed to something old and hungry, something that was here long before us and will be here long after. The forest doesn't want to welcome us home, it wants to eat us. If you stay in this sector, you'll hear the call every year. It'll get louder, more insistent. You'll start dreaming about Site Zero, about walking those paths. You'll find yourself driving toward mile marker 52 without meaning to. This is how it starts. I'm writing this because I think I'm going to fail. This October will be my 19th year hearing the call, and I can feel myself weakening. The voice is in my head even when it's not broadcasting. I see the paths in my sleep. I wake up and find myself standing at my front door, keys in hand, about to drive to the forest. Don't let it win, Michael. Don't make my mistake. If you can transfer out, do it. If you can't, then be stronger than I was. Remember that everyone who walks into those trees is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. Remember what we're protecting. And if you hear me calling you from the forest, if you hear my voice telling you it's beautiful and you should come home, know that it's not really me. It's wearing my voice like a mask. Don't listen. I love you, son. Be better than I was. Dad, I read the letter 3 times, my father's words burning into my brain. He'd known. He'd known he was going to fail, and he'd written this to warn me, to save me. What do I do? I asked finally. You have a choice, Hawkins said. Transfer out, and we'll never contact you again. Or stay, help us with the protocol, and learn to live with the call in your head. But I won't lie to you, Michael. If you stay, every October 13th will be harder than the last. And eventually, you might hear something you can't resist. I thought about my father, dying in his patrol car while fighting the urge to walk into the forest. I thought about the 47 people tonight, smiling as they disappeared into the trees. I thought about that woman with the 2 large pupils, speaking in my father's voice. I'll stay, I said. Someone needs to. Captain Morris nodded, relief evident on his face. Then welcome to the protocol, Trooper Castellano. Let me show you what your father learned over 18 years. He pulled out a map of the Pine Barrens, marked with dozens of red X's. Every year, we document where people enter the forest. The paths change slightly, but they all lead to Site Zero. Your father mapped 17 different routes. He also identified what he called warning signs, behavioral changes in people who've been exposed to the broadcast but haven't answered the call yet. Warning signs. Insomnia. Dreams about forests and singing. An obsessive interest in the Pine Barrens history. Feeling drawn to mile marker 52 even when off duty. Your father developed a checklist. If someone shows multiple signs, we try to get them out of the area before October 13th. And if they refuse to leave, Morris's expression darkened. Then, we do what we can to minimize the damage. We spent the next 3 hours going through my father's files. He'd been meticulous, documenting everything he'd learned about the protocol. The broadcast patterns, the types of people most susceptible, the history of Site Zero. He'd even included sketches, crude but disturbing, of what the clearing looked like. A perfect circle of ancient stones arranged around a depression in the earth. And in the center of that depression, something that looked like an entrance, or a mouth. By the time Hawkins and Morris left, the sun was coming up. I sat alone in the briefing room, surrounded by my father's research, trying to process everything I'd learned. The Pine Barrens weren't just a forest. They were a feeding ground. And something down there, something ancient and hungry, had been calling people home for centuries. My radio crackled to life, making me jump. All units, this is dispatch. We have multiple reports of abandoned vehicles on the Garden State Parkway, various locations. All vehicles have their radios tuned to 104.7 FM. Search and rescue teams are being organized. I picked up the radio. Dispatch, this is Castellano. How many vehicles? A pause, then, 47 confirmed so far, Trooper. All from last night. 47 people gone. 47 families who would never see their loved ones again. 47 names that would be added to the protocol files marked as missing, presumed deceased. I looked down at my father's letter, at his warning to be stronger than he was. I didn't know if I could be, but I was going to try. Because someone had to stand watch at mile marker 52. Someone had to resist the call and protect the people who couldn't hear it. Someone had to remember that the singing from the forest wasn't beautiful. It was the sound of something feeding. The first year was the hardest, not October 13th itself. I was prepared for that. Had protocols and procedures drilled into me by Director Hawkins and Captain Morris. No, the hardest part was the other 364 days, when the forest was silent but I could still feel it watching. I started having the dreams 3 weeks after that first night. I'd be standing at mile marker 52, and the trees would be singing. Not the broadcast. This was different, deeper, like a heartbeat made of voices, and I'd feel this overwhelming urge to walk into the darkness, to follow the paths my father had mapped, to find Site Zero and see what was really there. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, sometimes finding myself halfway to my car, keys in hand before I realized what I was doing. The protocol had a term for this: resonance. Once you heard the call clearly, once you understood the language that wasn't a language, you became attuned to the forest. It could reach you even when it wasn't October 13th. Even when it wasn't broadcasting. Your father experienced severe resonance, Hawkins told me during one of our monthly check-ins. We'd meet at a diner off the parkway, always somewhere public, always somewhere far from the Pine Barrens. His journals from the last few years show increasing obsession with Site Zero. He was mapping the paths in his sleep, drawing pictures of the clearing. By year 17, he couldn't go a week without driving past mile marker 52, even on his days off. How do I fight it? I asked. You don't, Hawkins said bluntly. You manage it, you accept that the call is part of you now, and you build walls around it. Routine helps, structure, avoiding the area when you're off duty, and... He hesitated. Medication, if necessary. We have people who can prescribe. I'm not drugging myself to forget, I said. It's not about forgetting. It's about dulling the signal. Hawkins pulled out a prescription bottle. Atypical antipsychotics, low dose. They don't stop the call, but they make it easier to resist. Your father refused them. Pride, maybe, or fear of what it meant to need them. Don't make his mistake. I took the pills. I wish I could say I didn't need them, that I was strong enough to resist without chemical help. But the truth is, by month 6, I was barely sleeping. By month 9, I'd driven to mile marker 52 4 times without meaning to, finding myself parked on the shoulder at 3 a.m. with no memory of deciding to go there. The pills helped. They didn't stop the dreams, but they gave me enough distance from the call that I could function, could do my job, could pretend I was still the same person I'd been before I heard that voice. October 13th, 2004, my second year. I was ready. The protocol had been refined. We'd set up roadblocks at every entrance to the affected sector. State police, backed by DEP officials, and what Hawkins called containment specialists, men in unmarked tactical gear who didn't talk and didn't answer questions. We rerouted all traffic around the Pine Barrens, citing emergency roadwork. It almost worked. The broadcast started at 11:47 p.m., exactly like the year before. But this year, I was at the command post 5 miles from mile marker 52, monitoring radio traffic and coordinating the response. We'd learned from last year's failure. This time, we'd catch people before they could enter the forest. The first car was intercepted at 11:52 p.m. A man from Trenton, driving a Honda Civic, radio tuned to 104.7 FM. He tried to drive through our roadblock. When officers stopped him, he was calm, smiling, insisting he needed to go home. We detained him, held him in a mobile command unit while medical personnel tried to assess his condition. By midnight, we'd stopped 17 vehicles, all of them with radios tuned to the same frequency. All of them with drivers who smiled and spoke about going home. We were containing it. The protocol was working. Then my radio started picking up the interference. I'd stayed in the command post specifically to avoid this. I'd been on the suppressant medication for months, had built up my resistance. But the moment that static cut through my radio, I felt it. The pull, the voice. Michael, you stopped 17 tonight. But 30 more made it through. They're walking the paths right now. They're singing. They're happy. Don't you want to be happy? I gripped the table in front of me, my knuckles white. The command post around me seemed to fade, replaced by an image of dark trees and moonlight. I could see the paths, every route my father had mapped, glowing in my mind like roads I'd traveled 1,000 times. Castellano? Captain Morris's voice seemed distant. Michael, you with us? I blinked, and the command post snapped back into focus. Morris was staring at me with concern. I'm fine, I lied. Just tired. You look like hell. When's the last time you slept? I'm fine, I repeated, but my hands were shaking. We intercepted 38 people that night. Better than last year's 47. The protocol was improving, but 30 made it through our roadblocks, disappearing into the forest before we could stop them. 30 families who would wake up to find their loved ones missing. 30 names added to the files. I went home at 6 a.m. exhausted and defeated. The suppressants had helped, but they couldn't completely block the call, and I'd felt something new this year. The voice hadn't just been calling me, it had been speaking to me, acknowledging me, like it recognized I was resisting, and it was curious about why. That's when I started researching on my own, going beyond the protocol files. If I was going to fight this thing, I needed to understand it. The Pine Barrens had been inhabited for thousands of years before Europeans arrived. The Lenape people had settlements throughout the region, but they avoided certain areas. The oral histories I managed to track down, translated third-hand from anthropological records, spoke of a place where the forest speaks. The Lenape would leave offerings there, but they would never enter. They believed something old lived in the ground, something that had been there since before humans walked the earth. When European colonists arrived, they ignored the warnings. Dutch traders established camps in the Pine Barrens in the 1600s. Many of those camps vanished overnight. The official records blamed Indian attacks, but I found journal entries from survivors describing something else. People hearing songs in the forest. Whole families walking into the trees and never returning. The Jersey Devil legend started in 1735, or, at least, that's when the most famous version originated. But I found earlier references, dating back to 1690, describing a devil in the Pine Barrens, not a creature with hooves and wings, something worse. Something that could speak with human voices, something that called people home. The more I researched, the more I realized the Jersey Devil wasn't a monster. It was a cover story, a way to explain the disappearances, to give people something tangible to fear. Better to believe in a cryptid than to acknowledge the truth, that the forest itself was alive and feeding. I found something else, too. In 1778, the year those Continental Army soldiers vanished, George Washington's investigation team found something at Site Zero. The report was classified, but I managed to access a fragment through a Freedom of Information Act request. It described a stone structure of unknown origin, partially buried, with inscriptions in no known language. The team tried to excavate, but every time they dug, the earth would fill back in overnight. Eventually, they gave up and sealed the records. That structure was still there, under Site Zero, under the clearing where all the paths led. I became obsessed. I couldn't help it. The suppressants kept me functional, but they couldn't stop me from thinking about it, dreaming about it, needing to understand. I started mapping the Pine Barrens myself, cross-referencing my father's paths with historical records of disappearances. Patterns emerged. Certain areas had higher concentration of incidents. Certain dates, not just October 13th, but other days too, scattered throughout history, showed spikes in missing persons reports. October 13th was the main feeding, but it wasn't the only one. By my third year, I documented 17 other dates when smaller incidents occurred. Never as dramatic as October 13th, usually just one or two people. But consistent, regular, like the forest was maintaining itself between the big harvests. I brought this to Hawkins during one of our meetings. "It's not random," I told him, spreading out my research across the diner table. "The forest feeds on a schedule. October 13th is the main event, but these other dates, look at the pattern. Every third month on the 13th. February, May, August, November. Smaller numbers, but consistent." Hawkins studied my work, his expression unreadable. "We've noticed the pattern," he said finally. "We don't publicize it because we can't prevent it. The October 13th protocol requires massive resources. We can't maintain that level of response every 3 months. So you just let it happen. We document it. We learn from it. And we save who we can." He pushed my papers back toward me. "Michael, I need to ask you something. How many times a week do you drive past mile marker 52? I didn't answer. "Your supervisor says you've requested overtime shifts in Sector 7 every week for the past 6 months. You're spending more time near the Pine Barrens than any other officer. That's a warning sign. I'm researching, trying to understand." "You're feeding the resonance," Hawkins cut me off. "Every time you go near that forest, the connection gets stronger. You're not studying it, Michael. You're courting it. My father spent 18 years. Your father broke." Hawkins rarely raised his voice, but he was shouting now. "He broke, and it killed him. And you're following the same path, the obsession, the research, the need to understand. This is exactly how it starts. I'm on the medication. I'm managing it. Are you?" Hawkins pulled out a folder. Inside were photos, surveillance photos of me, standing at mile marker 52 at 2 a.m., parked on the shoulder, just sitting in my car, staring into the trees, dates and timestamps on each one. "We monitor all protocol officers," Hawkins said. "Standard procedure. Michael, you've been to mile marker 5243 times in the past 6 months, always at night, always alone. You sit there for hours, and according to the monitoring equipment we have hidden in the area, you're being exposed to low-level broadcasts. The forest is calling you, and you're listening." My throat was dry. I didn't know. The resonance makes you forget, makes it seem normal, natural. This is how your father spent his last year, driving to the forest, sitting there, listening to something we can't hear, building up to October 13th when he'd finally be ready to answer. "I'm not going in," I said. "I'm stronger than that. Your father said the same thing." Hawkins closed the folder. "I'm recommending you for immediate transfer. You're done with the protocol, Michael. It's eating you alive. No. The word came out harder than I intended. I'm not leaving. Someone needs to patrol that sector. Someone who understands, someone who can resist. Hawkins finished. And you can't anymore. You haven't been able to for months. You just couldn't see it. We sat in silence. Around us, the diner continued its normal operations. People eating breakfast, drinking coffee, living normal lives. None of them knew what was happening less than 20 miles away. None of them could hear the song that was always playing in my head now, even here, even away from the forest. Come home, Michael. Your father is waiting. The congregation is waiting. Don't you want to understand? Don't you want to see? 1 more year, I said finally. Let me make it to October 13th, 2005. Let me help with the protocol 1 more time. If I can get through that, I'll transfer. I promise. Hawkins studied me for a long moment. 1 more year, he agreed. But I'm assigning a monitor. Officer Lisa Chen from the northern sector. She'll shadow you, make sure you don't do anything reckless. And Michael, if you drive to mile marker 52 even once before October 13th, the deal is off. You're transferred immediately. I agreed. I had to. It was my last chance to prove I could resist. But deep down, in a place I wouldn't admit even to myself, I knew the truth. I was going to fail, just like my father had failed. The forest had already won. It was just waiting for October 13th to collect its prize. Officer Lisa Chen was 32, sharp as a razor, and had no patience for excuses. She'd been briefed on my situation, high-risk resonance case, potential compromise, and treated me accordingly, like a bomb that might go off at any moment. You understand that I'm authorized to detain you if you show signs of answering the call, she said on our first day working together. We were in my patrol car, driving the northern perimeter of Sector 7. Not near mile marker 52, not anywhere close. I understand. Good, because I read your father's file. I know how this ends if you don't fight it. We worked together through the summer and into fall. She was good at her job, observant, thorough, and completely immune to the call. She'd listened to recordings of the October 13th broadcasts and heard nothing but static. The forest had no interest in her. What does it sound like? She asked me once. The call. What do you actually hear? I'd never been asked to describe it before. The protocol files talked about compelling audio phenomena and cognitohazardous mimetic agents, but those were just words, clinical terms for something that defied description. It's not really a sound, I said finally. It's more like a memory of a place I've never been. Like coming home after a long trip, and everything is exactly where it should be. The voice speaks in images and feelings more than words. It shows me paths through the forest, and I know I've walked them before, even though I haven't. It shows me faces of people I've never met, and I recognize them. I know their names. I know they're waiting for me. That's horrifying, Lisa said. The worst part? It's not. When I hear it, it feels beautiful, natural, right? It's only afterward, when the call fades, that I realize how fucked up it was. She was quiet for a moment. Your father's final journal entry. Have you read it? I hadn't. Hawkins had told me it existed, but I'd been afraid to look at it, afraid of what I'd find. He wrote it on October 12th, 2002, the day before he died. Lisa pulled out a photocopy and handed it to me. Hawkins thought you should see it. He thinks it might help you understand what you're fighting. My father's handwriting was shaky, almost illegible. Day 6,570 since I first heard the call. Tomorrow is October 13th again. Year 19. I don't think I can make it through another one. The medication isn't working anymore. I can hear them singing even now, even with the pills, even miles away from the forest. They're calling my name. They're showing me Sarah's face, Michael's mother, dead for 10 years now. And she's smiling. She's with them. She's in the congregation. She's telling me it's time to come home. I know it's not really her. The forest just wears her face like a mask. But God help me. I want to believe it. I want to walk into those trees and see her again. I want to believe that death isn't the end, that there's something waiting, that the congregation is real and beautiful and eternal. Michael joined the state police last year. I'm so proud of him, but I'm terrified he'll end up in this sector. I'm terrified he'll hear the call like I did. I tried to block his transfer to Sector 7, but someone overrode me. Someone in Trenton with protocol clearance. They want him here. They want to see if he'll break like I'm breaking. Tomorrow night, I'll hear the broadcast again. And this time, I don't know if I'll be strong enough to stay in my car. The call is so loud now, so clear, so beautiful. If I fail, if I walk into the forest, I need Michael to know. It wasn't weakness. It was something older and stronger than human will. The forest doesn't take you by force. It makes you want to be taken. It makes you willing. And right now, God forgive me, I'm willing. Tomorrow night, I'll fight it one more time. But if I lose, if they find my body in my car at mile marker 52, tell Michael I'm sorry. Tell him I tried. Tell him the call is real. The congregation is real. And they're waiting for all of us. Daniel Castellano, badge number 4217. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking. My father had known. He'd known he was going to fail, and he'd fought it anyway. He'd stayed in his car, resisted the urge to walk into the forest, and died from the strain of resisting. He didn't fail, I said quietly. He won. He heard the call, and he didn't answer. His heart gave out from the stress, Lisa said. Medical examiner found evidence of extreme cardiac trauma. It was like he'd run a marathon while having a heart attack. The effort of resisting literally killed him. But he resisted. I folded the letter carefully and handed it back. That's what matters. Is it? Lisa's expression was hard. Michael, your father died alone in his car, fighting a losing battle against something that will never stop calling. Is that really winning? I didn't have an answer. October 13th, 2005 arrived with unseasonably warm weather. The forecast called for fog rolling in from the coast, which would make the protocol operation more difficult. Limited visibility meant easier for people to slip through our roadblocks. I reported to the command post at 8 p.m., 4 hours before the expected broadcast. The operation was bigger this year. We'd learned from previous failures. 30 state police officers, 20 DEP personnel, and a dozen of those silent tactical specialists. We had drone surveillance, thermal imaging, and jamming equipment that Director Hawkins swore would disrupt the signal this year. We've made improvements, he told the assembled team during the briefing. The jammers are tuned specifically to the 104.7 frequency. The moment the broadcast starts, we'll hit it with everything we've got. With luck, we'll prevent anyone from hearing the call at all. I didn't point out that they'd tried jamming before. Multiple times. It had never worked. The signal came from somewhere the technology couldn't reach. Lisa stuck close to me as the night progressed. At 10 p.m., we received word that traffic had been successfully rerouted. The Pine Barrens sector was essentially locked down. At 11 p.m., the jammers were activated, filling the air with a high-pitched whine that made my teeth ache. At 11:47 p.m., the broadcast began. The jammers did nothing. The high-pitched whine continued, but underneath it, I could hear the call. Clear as day. Clearer than it had ever been before. And this year it wasn't just calling, it was speaking directly to me. Michael, 3 years you've resisted, 3 years you've fought. But you know the truth now, don't you? You've read your father's journals. You've done your research. You understand what we are. We're not monsters. We're not evil. We're old. We were here before humans, and we'll be here after. We're part of the forest, part of the earth, part of the cycle of growth and decay. We don't take anyone who doesn't want to come. We only call those who are ready. Your father was ready. He fought it because he thought he had to, because he'd been conditioned to believe that answering the call was death. But Michael, it's not death, it's transformation. It's becoming part of something larger than yourself, something eternal. The people in the congregation are happy. They've let go of fear, of pain, of loneliness. They're together, always singing in harmony. Your father is with them now. Your mother too. Everyone you've lost, everyone who's ever answered our call, they're all here, waiting for you. Don't you want to be whole again? The command post around me faded. I could see Site Zero so clearly now, like I was standing there. The circle of ancient stones, the depression in the center. And below, deep underground, the structure the Continental Army found in 1778. Not made of stone, made of something alive, something that pulsed with a heartbeat that echoed through the forest. Michael. Lisa's voice seemed to come from very far away. Michael, talk to me. What do you hear? I tried to answer, but my mouth wouldn't work. In my mind, I was already walking, already following the paths my father had mapped, already seeing the faces of the congregation, smiling and singing and welcoming me home. He's compromised, someone said. Hawkins, maybe. Get him secured. Now. Hands grabbed me, but I barely felt them. The call was everything now, the only thing that mattered. I needed to go. I needed to answer. I needed... Pain exploded across my face. Lisa had slapped me, hard enough that my vision cleared for a moment. "Fight it," she screamed. "Michael, fight it." I blinked. The command post snapped back into focus. Hawkins and 2 tactical specialists were restraining me, and I realized I'd been trying to walk toward the exit, trying to get to my car, trying to drive to mile marker 52. "How many?" I managed to gasp. 62, Hawkins said grimly. The jammers made it worse somehow. People heard the call from farther away. We've intercepted 23, but 39 made it through. They're in the forest now. The jamming equipment, I said, pieces clicking together in my drug-fogged mind. It's not blocking the signal. It's amplifying it. The forest is using our technology against us. Hawkins' face went pale. "Shut it down," he barked. "Shut down all the jammers now." But it was too late. Through the windows of the command post, I could see them. People walking out of the darkness, heading toward the forest. Not just the ones who'd driven here tonight. People from nearby towns. People who'd been sleeping in their homes when the broadcast started. The amplified signal had reached them all. Hundreds of them. All walking with that same serene smile. All heading to Site Zero. "This is it," Hawkins said quietly. "This is the big harvest, the one we've been trying to prevent." "We have to stop them," Lisa said. "We can't." Hawkins was already on his phone, making calls to God knows who. "We tried to stop it, and we made it worse. All we can do now is document and contain." "Contain?" I asked, my head still spinning. "Contain what?" He didn't answer, just pointed to the east. In the distance I could see lights, not flashlights or headlights. These were different. A sickly green glow rising from the forest itself. From Site Zero. It's feeding, Hawkins said. After tonight, it'll be dormant for months, maybe years, but the damage is done. Hundreds of people will be missing come sunrise. I watched the lights pulse and shimmer, watched the people walking steadily toward them, and I felt the call pulling at me, urging me to join them. The medication was barely working anymore. The suppressants couldn't block a signal this strong. I was going to fail, just like my father. I was going to walk into those trees and... No. The word came out as a croak, but it was my word, my choice. No, I'm not going. Lisa grabbed my arm, steadying me. That's it. Fight it, Michael. The congregation can wait, I said, and I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. They've waited this long. They can wait longer. The night dragged on. The broadcast continued until 3:04 a.m., then cut out abruptly. By then, we'd confirmed 427 missing persons, the largest October 13th incident in recorded history. And it was our fault. Our attempt to block the signal had made everything worse. The tactical teams searched the forest at dawn. They found 427 sets of clothes, arranged in neat piles around Site 0. Wallets, IDs, phones, jewelry, everything that identified the missing people as individuals. But no bodies, no blood, no signs of violence, just clothes and belongings arranged like offerings around that ancient circle of stones. And in the center of the depression, something new. The earth had opened up. Not collapsed, opened, like a mouth yawning wide. The Continental Army's structure was visible now, no longer buried. It looked organic, like it was made of wood and stone and something else, something that pulsed with that same sickly green light. No one went down there. No one wanted to see what was at the bottom. I transferred out of Sector 7 3 days later. Hawkins didn't argue. I'd proven I could resist, but just barely. Another October 13th would have broken me. I spent the next 15 years working various sectors of the New Jersey State Police. Got promoted to sergeant, then lieutenant. Had a quiet career by most standards. But I never stopped hearing the call. Even hundreds of miles from the Pine Barrens, even with years between me and that last broadcast, I could still feel it. A low hum at the back of my mind, patient and eternal. We're still here, Michael. We're always here. And when you're ready, we'll be waiting. I retired in 2020, took my pension, and moved to Arizona. Desert country, where there are no forests, no hidden clearings, no ancient structures buried in the earth. I thought distance would help. I thought maybe, finally, the call would fade. It hasn't. Last October 13th, 2024, 17 years after I left Sector 7, I woke up at 11:47 p.m. I was standing in my driveway, car keys in hand, staring east toward New Jersey. I hadn't driven there, hadn't even consciously woken up, but some part of me was ready to make that 3-day drive back to the Pine Barrens, ready to finally answer the call. I went back inside, locked the doors, and took triple my normal dose of medication. I made it through the night. But it was close. Closer than it had ever been. I'm 55 years old now. I've been hearing the call for 21 years. My father lasted 18 before it killed him. I'm on borrowed time. Every year, I check the protocol reports. The October 13th incidents continue. 30 people one year, 80 the next. The numbers vary, but it never stops. The forest keeps feeding. And every year, it gets harder to resist. I'm telling you this story now because I don't know if I'll make it through another October 13th. Because someone needs to know the truth before the protocol buries it completely. Because the people who walk into the Pine Barrens aren't victims of some supernatural predator. They're volunteers. They're answering an invitation that most people can't even hear. They're joining something old and vast and incomprehensible. They're becoming part of the congregation. And God help me, after 21 years of fighting it, I'm starting to think they're the lucky ones. The call is patient. It can wait. It's been waiting for thousands of years, and it'll wait thousands more. Eventually, everyone who can hear it will answer. Some last longer than others. Some fight harder, but in the end the forest always wins. So, if you're ever driving through southern New Jersey on October 13th, and your radio picks up a station on 104.7 FM, and you hear something beautiful calling you home, do me a favor. Don't listen. Don't try to understand. Just drive away as fast as you can. Because once you hear that call, once you really understand what it's saying, you'll spend the rest of your life fighting the urge to answer. And sooner or later, you'll lose. We all do. The congregation is waiting. It's always waiting. And one day, maybe October 13th next year, maybe 10 years from now, maybe when I'm old and tired and ready to let go, I'll stop fighting. I'll drive east from Arizona, back across the country, back to New Jersey. I'll park at mile marker 52. And I'll finally walk into the Pine Barrens to see what's really waiting there. My father's voice. My mother's voice. The voices of everyone I've lost and everyone I'll find again. The congregation is real, and they're singing.